Folks, welcome back to Nostalgianomics. Today we need to talk about why certain cards, certain products, and certain eras have much better opportunities to perform better than other products and cards and eras in this hobby. There are universal truths that you cannot deny with Pokemon based off the events that have happened and the different stages of popularity that have entered the hobby at different time periods in different eras. And because of this, it gives certain time periods much better opportunities than others based on nostalgia and the things people will care about in the future. And look, you can disagree with the statements I'm making in this video, and you can place your bets where you see fit. And obviously, the future is only going to make us right or wrong. No one's going to be able to tell you with 100% certainty, but there are things you need to understand to take into account when you are moving into certain cards or certain items. Unless you just don't care about the money and it's all just about your collection and you could care less if any of your collection or investment appreciates over time, then great, this video is not for you. I'll see you in the next one. But if you care about your investment or collection appreciating it all and giving yourself the best possible chance, you're going to want to hear what I have to say. Before we get into that though, guys, we have one of the biggest giveaways I've done on this channel. It is going to be for the Gold Star PSA 9 Unseen Forces Raikou card. This giveaway is sponsored by today's video sponsor, Low Popping. Guys, all you need to do to be included in this giveaway, be subscribed to the channel and go find this video where it's these Pokemon investments are taking off without you. Make sure to comment on it, and you can't comment 100 times. I mean, you can, but it will filter out duplicate users. You only get one chance, but make sure to comment on this video. We are choosing the winner on a random comment generator. And then because Low Poppin' is a sponsor, you need to make sure to follow them on their Instagram, their YouTube, and join their Discord. As long as you do those things, you have a chance to win that Gold Star Raikou card. It will be given away on February 29th, so I hope to see you all there for that. As always, guys, Low Poppin', this is their website. They got something for everyone. They got high-end, low-end, vintage, modern. They have sealed, they have slabs, they have Japanese, they have English. Really, anything that you're looking for, they have it on their site. If you do see something that catches your eye, all you have to do is click on it. If it is over $500, you can make them an offer. If it's over $1,000, you can buy now, pay later. As always, they're open to buy, sell, and trade. So you can offer trades for the card. And just like any other site, you can always just add it to cart and buy it if you want to. So if you want to check out Low Poppin' or even thank them for the giveaway, the link for their website will be in the description and the comment section below. All right. So let's talk about this a little bit, guys. I don't have all the fancy charts and statistics and all that today. We're just going to talk because there's a lot of half-truths that get thrown around the hobby. Sort of things like, well, once things age enough, everything becomes vintage. So it's all the same. I mean, you could argue it becomes older, so it's vintage, but it doesn't mean it's the same. Or you could say things like, well, Pokemon continues to be popular. Everything will eventually rise because people will go back and collect every single thing. That's not exactly true. Some people will, but the fact is a lot of things are expensive. A lot of things have no meaning or connection to people. And everything is not created equal. You'll also hear things like, well, whichever era has the best cards will do the best. And that's not exactly true either, because a lot of collectibles are run on nostalgia, and not a large group of people do not have nostalgia for every area of Pokemon, right? And so when you're looking at this hobby, there are some universal truths you need to understand before you start, investing or collecting for appreciation purposes. First up, the most popular times in this hobby were 1999 to 2001. That was the original release in the US. That's when everything was at its max. That's when the games were selling, whether it be Game Boy or an N64. That's when the anime was popular in the US. That's when all the cards were coming out, and they were the craze. It was Poke craze. It was all the news networks. Everything was going wild. And then, things started to fizzle out once you got, past kind of the Gym Heroes, Gym Challenge, even into the Neo sets. And the popularity of Pokemon really started to fade away. The kids that were collecting at that time started to grow up. It stopped being cool. And you kind of had that dead period, which we call, mid-era. It's kind of when WotC, Wizards of the Coast, ended and Pokemon bought the rights, Nintendo bought the rights, and they started making cards in the early 2000s into, the later, mid-2000s until we got to sort of that 2015 time period where XY came out. XY came out in 2014, but XY came out, and Pokemon Go, the cell phone game, was released, and Evolutions was released, and Pokemon Generations, the 20th anniversary, was released, and mainstream popularity came back to Pokemon with my generation, and then anyone who had kids or even the younger generation. And so obviously the beginning is going to be very popular, those cards and those products. Obviously, that time period in XY, which brought a huge amount of people back in the hobby, a lot of your favorite YouTubers and YouTube channels started back then and became, what they are today because of that period. Okay, we're going to have time periods in Sun and Moon, right, that had huge popularity spikes, especially with when the pandemic started, especially with Hidden Fates, and then Sword and Shield is probably arguably when the most people kind of re-entered or entered the hobby, right? The pandemic was at its height. You had Logan Paul, really pumping people up. You had tons of celebrities promoting it. You had a lot of, all these like live bidding auction sites come up. You had just tons of people really dive into Pokemon, whether it be full-time or, part-time businesses or, really spending tons of money and, getting their kids involved. It was multi-generational. And now we have Scarlet and Violet, which the popularity is still there, right? Pokemon's still selling tons of products. You have 151 bringing people back in the hobby. And so what I'm trying to tell you is those are the time periods that are going to be remembered by all the kids or even all the people like me. They're going to remember the times they got back in the hobby and the cards they were collecting back then. I already have a level of nostalgia for XY, for Sun and Moon, because I remember it. It means something to me, right? I have no connection to Black and White. I have no connection to Diamond and Pearl and so on. Others do. We're not saying no one was in Pokemon. Obviously, it survived. There was people who were into it. It's just you need to look at where the masses were, right? The masses didn't re-enter Pokemon until Pokemon Go, the game, Evolutions, Generations, some. And then during the pandemic, a lot more, Sword and Shield, and so on. And so those are the eras, right, that have the best chances of appreciating in value because of the popularity and the nostalgia. Those are the cards that people are going to want to come back and collect later on in life, especially if they're kids, even if they're adults and just didn't have the money, whatever it may be. Those are the eras people are going to want to come back and collect first and foremost with their first dollars out of their wallets, because that's what they have memories of, right? Whether it be like just memories of getting back in the hobby, finding their favorite YouTube channels, opening their first packs back in the hobby, whether it be kids opening their first packs ever, what they grew up with. That is going to mean the most. Okay. Now, the other side of that is, even though the mid era and the early, the later WotC stuff, right, doesn't have that level of nostalgia for most people, it is going to have a lot lower print runs and a lot lower amount of population of the rare cards in existence. And so you can argue that it takes a lot less people to find their way back there and just maybe they're completionists and want to complete everything. Maybe they're rarity hunters and they want to just collect, the rare cards. Maybe they want to just collect all the popular species, whatever it may be. It takes a lot less people to start moving back and wanting to do that. And so you can place your bets on that and thinking, well, I know it's never going to have the popularity demand of the other stuff, but maybe there'll be enough, stragglers finding their way back to push the prices up in the future. Now, for myself, I like to stick to the popularity and demand side of things. I think that the supply numbers that we see are no issue at all. I think 5,000 and 10,000 card pop reports are not too high, especially when you see a lot of these cards have only, 50, 100 cards on the market, even though their populations are 5,000, 10,000. This means that the majority of cards are being held in people's permanent collections. They're not selling them, even with the prices going up. They're not selling them. Less and less sealed product is still around from XY, Sun and Moon, and now Sword and Shield's even getting scarce because people are either ripping them or they are holding on to them and they're not selling, even though the prices are appreciating. This tells you there's an organic demand. People actually love this stuff, and it's not just about the money. It has that nostalgia and collectability factor. And so those are the places that I would want to focus my money, whether it be for collecting or investing. Same thing goes. That's why I've been bullish on first edition base. People say, well, Alex, you're not really about vintage. First edition base set, that's the first, right? That's when everyone got back in the hobby. Now, based on Unlimited, it could still do well, but it was very overprinted. I mean, it was printed so much, it's almost like up there with the modern sets. It was so crazy. And so there's just so much of it that maybe the popularity will go back there. But what happens is a lot of those cards are a lot more expensive than the modern cards. So even if it had somewhere near the same level of popularity, it doesn't have as much customer base because not as many people can afford to buy those cards and those products in high grades or sealed. And so I still would side with the modern stuff when it comes to that. But like I said, the base set, the first edition jungle, first edition fossils, those stuff that people remember from their childhood, the first appearance of the first 151, those can do well. But once you get into the later WotC and early Nintendo era and all the mid-era stuff, it has a much smaller customer base. A lot of the Pokemon that are the rares, people just don't care as much about. They're really, mostly chasing the original 151, maybe chasing the Gen 2, some Gen 3, but, it's very scarce, the amount of Pokemon in those eras that people actually chase after. And so it's a much smaller buyer pool, a much smaller collector pool. And because of that, it's going to take a lot more to get those cards to actually rise in value when we see things that have all the popularity and demand and that had the largest amount of influx of people come in the hobby, which has a better chance. People will say, well, Alex, they're printing this stuff into the ground. There's going to be way too much of it, way too many of those cards. Look, the stuff we're hearing there's too much of are like 5 and 10,000 pop reports. Guys, there are millions of people entering this hobby worldwide. Millions. The percentage of people that want the Sword and Shield cards compared to the percentage of people that want the low population mid-era or later WotC vintage cards, if you take the ratios, I would still beg to differ that the ratio of pop report to demand is still less than the ratio of pop report to demand of the old stuff. Meaning it's actually harder to get your hands on a modern card because there's more people that want them compared to the amount of that are actually graded and the amount or that are actually available on the market. Because like I said, maybe there's 10,000 Moonbryons graded. There's only about 100 of them on the entire market at one point. Meaning that's like 1%, guys. Like 1% of them are listed on the market and it's going down every single day. The price is rising. And we see this for a lot of modern cards, especially in the XY Sun Moon era. And I expect this to continue as Sword and Shield gets older and harder to find those mint copies. And the sealed product becomes too expensive where people open it less and less and less. And so that's up for debate, though. You may see it differently and you can place your bets where you want. But like I said, the universal truths are the biggest popularity in Pokemon was in 1999 to like 2001, and then from like 2015-16 time until recent days. That's where the biggest popularity spikes were. Everything in between that, it's going to have a lot harder time drawing people back unless it's the hardcore collectors, the completionists, the rarity chasers, and those people. Because here's the thing, everyone only has so much money. And even as you age and people get better jobs and they have more money to spend and the kids grow up, it's still a limited amount of money. And they're always going to go after the things they actually love and enjoy and have organic demand for first before they go back and try to collect these rarities or complete these things just because, of collectability wise. And so for all those reasons, this is why I continue to promote the modern side of things. This is why I consider modern to start in XY and then go into Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet. And people always say, well, Alex, I don't think that's modern. Look, we can discuss and we can argue about where modern starts or where vintage starts, where mid-era starts. It's not important, right? What's important is the new era of Pokemon when it became mainstream again was with Pokemon Go, the cell phone game, Evolutions, Generations, that time period. So that time period is where Pokemon started to appear everywhere on the shelves again. People my age and everywhere started buying it again. And YouTube channels started to grow. That's what separates the eras, right? That's what separates, the no demand, no connection time to having demand, connection, nostalgia, collectability, organic demand again. And so that's why I consider that time forward to be the start of this modern age where people actually love the stuff again and actually have a connection and a memory of. Now, anyone who got in during Sun and Moon may not care about XY, right? Anyone who got in with Sword and Shield may not care as much about XY or Sun and Moon, right? But anyone who got in during any of those times is going to care about the time they got in. Any kids who started collecting, they're going to care about the time they got in, right? And they're also going to care about certain, time periods since then, right? Like me, I got in XY, but I still care about some Sun and Moon sets and cards. I still care about a lot of Sword and Shield sets and cards. Scarlet Violet, I already care about some of the. So it's like you're just going to build onto that, and the further that goes, right? You only have so many dollars, and so for the dollars to make it back to those things that you remember and you want to collect as the prices still rise. It takes a lot to do that and then go back further into things you don't really care about as much, you don't have organic demand for, but you just want to chase for collectability or rarity or any of that type of stuff. So just remember those things going forward when you are thinking about who's going to buy these things in the future, who's going to want them in the future. And like I said, maybe the rarity and scarcity of the older mid-era stuff will be enough to drive the price up because it only takes a little bit of people wanting them. But where I place my bets on the masses, and the masses just continue to tell us They like the new stuff. They like Sword and Shield. They're even starting to say they like XY and Sun and Moon stuff like we saw last year. And I expect the same to happen in Scarlet and Violet as some of these sets age and people realize, wait, these sets were better than we thought. We treated them, you know, like Roaring Skies and Primal Clash when they were $80 a box. We treated them like Chilling Reign and Fusion Strike when they were $80 a box. You know, we'll probably be saying, wow, I can't believe, you know, Paldea Evolved was $80 and $90 a box. I can't believe Paradox Rift was $80 and $90 a box. Because you know, age is a funny thing. You know, it does is, you know, it changes the perspective. The item doesn't change, right? The cards don't change. It's just the perspective we have on them and the perception of, you know, how we see things growing or how we view the amount of supply or you know, the popularity of it. That's the only thing that changes. And as that changes, you will see these things gain value. And like I said, you can either be along for the ride, you can either just keep collecting and not worrying about it, or, you know, you can trash me in the comments like I'm sure some people will. I always look forward to those. And so I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it does help. Make sure to go, I will link the video in the description. Make sure to go watch that video, subscribe, comment on it, and follow Low Poppin' on their socials to be included in the giveaway for the PSA 9 Unseen Forces Raikou Gold Star. That's all I got today, guys. I'll see you back here in a new video soon. I'm out.